OSKRHQ.DS is a fully themable design system, and it's actually a design guide and a component library written in React for web and mobile as well. And I created it for myself to create my own, apps and websites and presentations and all of that. But anybody can take it and make it their own. I'm going to be showing you today in this video how to theme the system and make it your own in your own applications and all of that. And also show you the code, because really what makes the system very unique is the code and how everything just makes sense from a design point of view, and how design is really embedded in code, making easier the communication between designer and developer. A quick caveat before we start: for those of you who are not very familiar with coding and how to set up an application, all that stuff, just bear with me. I'm gonna go into the weeds and show how the system works under the hood in a second. And really, the only things that you have to concern are very minimal. So just to set it up, I have a application here that needs to consume the system, and it's really the website that showcases the system. And what I need to do is I need to go to my terminal and run either yarn add the system, or if you have npm installed, you can, or node installed, you can just do npm install and then --save and then my system. What that would do, I already have it loaded, and what that would do is it would load it in your package.json right here, and then it also in your node modules you should have that package in there. So if you go up, it should be around here. Yeah, there it is. So this is the package. Once you do all of that, you're set to go. So the folder you're going to concern the most with is styles and themes within it. The theme folder contains 2 files, and actually 3 files. This one is just importing the files that you include here. So you can have a lot of themes if you wanted to. In this case, I just have a default theme, and it's just the theme that you see. Let's actually run the server. So we're gonna do gatsb develop, just so you guys can see the site. So if we go down this path, so here's my theme, and this is I call it the entry point to the system. The only things that you need to change or concern with are here. You could potentially do more customization if you wanted to, but essentially, if you wanted to theme something, you're usually concerned about color, typography, maybe some border radiuses, and the spacing as well. So I'm going to show you how you can customize that to your needs. So if you go to localhost 8000, now you see the page with my theme, with my colors, with my space, with my typography, everything that is defined in this file. So all of the colors that I'm using are defined here. I'm not using any other colors that are not in here. And my typography, the only things that I need to concern about as a consumer is loading the typeface, and then instantiating the typeface, and then also what is my base font size. So if I do like 13, you'll see that everything programmatically changes as well. So if you go back to 16, so this is my my theme, and you have to follow this schema for the system to work. So let's look at another theme, which is a theme that I just made up. And in this case, you'll see that some of the colors are not instantiated. The system automatically, it has a way for it to know that if you instantiate this color, it automatically and programmatically comes up with the tints and shades for that hue. If I were to use this theme, I can go to my themes directory, and I can just uncomment and comment the other one, and then you'll see that my theme has changed, right? So if I go even to the components, buttons are different, just to make sure that you saw that. Let me go back to my other theme, and this is how it looks like. So another cool thing that the system takes care of is color contrast. So you'll see that for these, they are passing color contrast, right? However, if I had in my demo theme, if I had a color here that was maybe a yellow, which is a really hard color to work with, especially with white background, you'll see that the system already takes care of figuring out what the text should be based on the background color. So there's enough contrast for someone that has a hard time seeing colors can look at it. I wouldn't use yellow, but you could do like, I don't know, blue or whatever, or even papaya whip, which is one of my favorite colors. Papaya whip. And you can see that everything changes to that color. And so that's color, that's theming. Just to reiterate, the only thing that you have to really worry about is this file, or customizing this file. If you don't want to instantiate all the colors that you need, you can just instantiate the 400, and the system will programmatically figure out what the colors you need should be. But you can customize, your success colors, your danger colors, like all that stuff. And you just need to import your typeface and instantiate it, and then also figure out what your base font size will be. So if I actually change this to 13, we'll see how typography changes. So this is my scale right now, but if I were to do 13 and hit save, everything scales proportionally to that base font size, which is really what I wanted. So the same thing with the 8-point grid system. I'm using 8 pixels to define dimensions. Not only dimensions, but space in general, padding, margin, and dimensions, and also the border radius. That is theming. That's the only thing that you have to do for theming. Let's go back to my default, and there's some things that I want to show you here, which are not in themes, they're in base. This is the most important file, I think, where all the logic, the SAS logic lives, and the information, the SAS architecture really lives. So in here you have elements, which are just, if you wanted to target specific elements like H1s and all of that, you would do it here. The normalize, I'm just doing a basic normalizing here. And then the utility function. So these actually work with the data that is in here. So for color, you'll see that these things were defined in the file that in the theming file. And in here, I just have a type of color. The same for space. So these follow a very predictable scale. As a consumer, you know that for shadows, for example, if you have the higher the number, the more elevated that color is. So let me show you how that looks in depth. So this is how you would use it, and if you're using 100, this is it. 200, you get the point, right? The same thing goes for motion. Very specific rules for motion as well. So all of that is in here, and you can see how that how these specifications made it to these things. And then the same type of rules are defined for everything, right? For spacing, for typography, which is right here, for color, well, we already saw color, for iconography. So these are just the data, right? Now the functions take all of that data and manipulate it in a way that makes sense. For example, that color contrast thing, there's a function that makes that happen. The same thing for depth, motion, space, and this goes back to something that I call the anatomy of the UI. You might have heard that if you have read some of my articles. Everything that you define on the UI in code needs these 5 things: color, depth, motion, space, typography. So here are functions for every one of those, and also for the mixins the same thing. And that's really it. That's pretty much the system as a stance. If you wanted to go into the package and really look at the code and really figure out how to use it, how to theme it, and how to use the utility functions and mixins, there's documentation for all of that in here. And I also made a UI kit that you can check out here. You can just download it in here. The idea is that you would have a one-to-one relationship with code. So everything that you see in the UI kit, it's a very smart UI kit with very smart symbols. And the idea is that every symbol will map one-to-one to a coded component that you could see in here. So you can download the sketch file, play around with it, and see how I made that. But that the UI kit is made with the same ideology of color space, typography, and iconography, and motion and depth. So everything that I'm using in Sketch, I translated it into code, so that the communication between design and development is not lost. So that is it. That's pretty much the design system.